Hello everyone, this is Shannon for Waffle Flower Crafts. In today's video, we are going to create some shiny foiled backgrounds using stencils that we create with some full panel dies. This is a great technique to really stretch those full panel dies and really get the most bang for your buck. These are the full panel dies I'll be using today. First up is the Microgrid Panel 1, then we have the Microgrid Panel 2, and last is the Shutters Panel. These cut great A2 panels, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, great for backgrounds, but we're going to stretch these dies a little bit today and create our own stencils with them. The stencil material I'll be using today is from the Crafter's Workshop. It comes with 2 or 3 12 by 12 sheets. I just trim the sheets down to be about an A2 panel size with my paper trimmer. You can also make stencils from heavy stock Yupo paper, so if you have this in your stash, you could use this instead. The only downside with those Yupo paper is it is more expensive than the stencil sheets, and it is not transparent. The stencil sheets allow you to make a stencil for 60 cents. The Yupo paper is actually double that price per stencil. So just keep that in mind. There's a third option, which is Mylar sheets, and you can find those on Amazon, and that's actually going to be probably your cheapest option of all. So I'm going to start with that stencil material that I trimmed earlier from the Crafter's Workshop sheets. And I have the Shutters Panel die here, and I'm just going to line up that stencil material with that Shutters Panel die and hold it together with a couple pieces of micropore tape. It's just going to make sure nothing shifts while I run it through my die cutting machine. After I run it through here, you can see that the die cuts through that stencil material beautifully, and now I have a stencil that's pretty much ready to be used. But before I use this stencil, I'm actually going to spray it with this super awesome product. This is called Pixie Spray. This is a repositional adhesive, which is really great for stencils. It makes sure that stencil doesn't move around on you while you use it. So I'm just going to spray the back side of my stencil. I have a piece of scrap paper here to protect my water media mat, and after I spray it, I'll let it dry completely. Now I have an A2 panel of some light blue cardstock that I placed right down onto that scrap of paper, because it's actually a little sticky, that scrap of paper, and then I placed my stencil right down on top of that panel. I have some transfer gel here from Thermoweb, and I'm going to use, well, this is actually my Cricut tool, but I'm going to use it like a putty knife and kind of spread this gel all over this A2 panel. I make sure when I spread this gel that I'm getting all of those open areas of the stencil, and I also get it fairly thick. It's probably a little bit thicker than the stencil. I don't scrape it down completely to the being flush with the stencil. And I also am not concerned about it being totally smooth texture. I actually kind of like a little bit of variation to the texture, and that's part of the reason why I love this transfer gel. So once I've got it spread over the stencil, I just remove my stencil and then I'll let that dry for an hour. You want to make sure it's completely dry before you move on to the foiling. So while that panel is drying, I have a second panel of blue cardstock here, and I have a stencil that I made with Waffle Flower's Microgrid 1 panel die, and I'm using it with some of this Gina Glitzy Glitter Gel. This is also from Thermoweb. This is an awesome way to create a different kind of background with your stencil. I'm doing a little differently here and spreading that gel kind of irregularly, so I'm not spreading it all the way to the edges, and I think this just makes a really awesome background. Again, a great way to use your DIY stencils. You can also use these with ink blending. There's just so many possibilities. So now I'm going to move on to my images. This is the new Bouquet Builder 4 combo. It comes with the stamp set and matching dies in the back. I've grabbed some of the flowers and images from this set, and I'm going to stamp them in Memento Tuxedo Black onto some 110-pound white cardstock. I do stamp this twice just to make sure everything is nice and bold, and after I stamp these flowers, I'm ready to color them in. So I'm actually going to use Copics to color all these images in today. The colors that I'm using are on screen so you can follow along. I'm going to start with this tiger lily and color it basically white. I started with a light blue for the tips and then a light purple for the center. Now I'm just going to add some streaks here on each of the petals, again using some purple here, a little bit darker than before. Then I'll move to the stamen, just have 2 colors picked out for that, some really simple coloring, and then I'll add some dots on the tips of the petals or the center of the petals with this this really kind of rich mahogany color. Then I'll finish up with some greens for the stem and the leaves. Now I'm moving on to my poppy. Going to color this kind of a red-orange color. Keeping the center light, started with my lightest color, worked out to the petals, then moved on to my medium color. Now I'm at my darkest color, and now I'll start blending back through. Now I have my medium, and then I'll finish up by blending, then transition with my lightest color. Now I'll finish by coloring in the stamen with some gray, and then the very center with some really kind of lime greens. I'm now moving on to the leaves, just 2 colors picked out there. And now I'll move on to my next flower. So this is a Morning Glory, going to color the base of it with a light purple, and then the actual flower, the actual petals, I'm coloring with some kind of bluish purple. And there's a great transition here from my light to my medium and to my dark, which is what I'm coloring right now. So I have to really blend these several times. So I'm working on my medium shade here, blending back that dark and that medium, and then back to my lightest shade, trying to blend over that transition between the medium to the light. And then I'll finish up this Morning Glory with some green for the stem and the leaf. So with my coloring all done, I'm now ready to move back to foiling. As you can see here, that glitter is completely dry. That actually dried pretty fast. And my transfer gel here on this panel is completely dry. You can see how clear it is. That's one way to tell that it's dry. I'm going to use this foil sheet, or this transfer sheet here. This is aqua. I just trimmed it down to about an A2 panel size to cover that panel, or to cover all that transfer gel. I have a carrier sheet here from some parchment paper. Just folded it over, fed the 2 through my laminator, which I had heating up for 20 minutes, so it's good and hot. And once I ran it through, you can see I'll remove the excess foil, and I have this beautiful shiny background, perfect to really highlight those flowers or set off those flowers. So I die cut these flowers first, actually, with the matching dies, and then arranged them here on the panel. And then I'm going to kind of hold all those flowers and leaves exactly where I want them with a couple strips of blue painter's tape. Once I've got those all in place, I'm going to use these foam squares here, just pull them off and place them on the back side of all my flowers. Kind of use the foam too to kind of hold the flowers and the leaves together in place wherever I can kind of overlap over 2 die cuts. And then I'll remove the backings, and then I will flip this over, center it here in my panel, and then stick it down. Once it's stuck down, I can carefully remove the painter's tape, and I have all my flowers and leaves perfectly arranged. Now I'm going to move on to my sentiment. This is made with the Sisterhood Stamp Set. I stamped it in some Versamark onto some black cardstock, and then heat embossed it with some white embossing powder. And now I'm just going to stick it here on the front of my card. I used a little foam square again to kind of support the right side of the sentiment, and then just used some liquid glue to hold the sentiment down to the flowers and leaves. Now I'll use the same liquid glue for the back side of my panel, and then just glue this panel down onto an A2 top folding card base made from 110-pound white cardstock. And now my card is done. I'll now hold the card up to camera so you can get a good look at that foiled background and the coloring on these flowers from the Bouquet Builder 4 stamp set. I really had a lot of fun creating this card. In fact, I had so much fun I created lots of cards, so I will share all of those cards with you now. First up is this card that I created with the microgrid panel 1 die. I created a stencil from that die and used some transfer gel and some gold foil on this craft paper. I really like how that one turned out. Here's another tone on tone. I used some green foil, and I used the microgrid panel 2 die for that background. I really like kind of the polka dotted nature of that one. Here's another one with that microgrid panel 1 die. Left the edge kind of irregular. I love that different look. And here's another one with that shutters panel die, this time with some purple foil and some purple cardstock. I do really like that tone on tone look of the cardstock and the foil. Here's one that I used some more of that Glitzy Glitter Gel. Love the gold on that craft cardstock. And that's it. That's all my cards. As you can see here, I had a lot of fun. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's cards and technique. If you want any more information on the products I use, please visit Waffle Flower. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful day.